Hey everyone, welcome to the Ovation Show, where we're discussing the healthcare crisis in America and employee benefits and the employers as a whole and how to increase business and increase the bottom line. We're bringing partners, colleagues, clients, and business owners together to discuss solutions and innovations that bring a higher quality of care to employees while reducing business owners' out-of-pocket costs, but then also reducing employer costs and giving them more transparency and control over what they're doing in their business. Today we're live in the Work Innovator studio, and they are amplifying the voice of business at VentureX in Castle Hills in the Realm. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, get away from the health insurance and benefits we always talk about. I'm sure it'll come up a little bit. We're going to talk about PEOs, professional employer organizations. And at Ovation, we partnered with PEOs for over a decade. And today we brought in Jaffe Donaldson and Ruben Garcia from Employers Flexible, a great Ovation partner, but talk about PEOs and how they can help your business. So welcome, guys. Great to have you here.
Dan,
Thanks for having us.
All right. So let's go first go into the first thing that we always have to talk about. What the heck is a PEO? So Ruben, I'm going to throw that at you.
That's something that we get often. What is a PEO? For those who don't know what a professional employer organization is, think of it, if you will, as a Costco. The reason why you go to Costco is because you have some cost savings in numbers, right? The PEO is the same way. PEOs help share some of that cost when you're pooling your resources with other small to medium-sized businesses in areas of HR, risk and safety, workers' comp, and then benefits.
So we're pooling all these resources, and I actually know a lot of companies that go to a PEO. Workers' comp's always a big one.
Yep.
In fact, I'll say this. I know a lot of employers that we walk through with PEOs. They say, workers' comp, got to get my workers' comp down. Hey, we hope we can go through and get lower health insurance costs. But there's an HR side to it, payroll. So we see most companies that work with PEOs somewhere between that 20 and 100 space, or they're smaller growing companies where they don't have an HR. So before we get into that, let's kind of go to Jaffe. Because you're the HR expert for Employer Flexible.
That's a stretch, but yes.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, we talked about the overall structure. Tell me about the HR pieces that you handle or that Employer Flexible uses or that a PEO does for a company.
Sure. So at our PEO, not only do you get an HR consultant, you have a whole team. You have a benefits specialist, payroll specialist, workers' comp specialist. I work directly with the client. We're talking about strategic planning, compensation analysis, employee relations, you name it. So I help develop their deliverables and initiatives to get them off the ground, but we have a whole team behind us that's doing the transactional stuff. HR is very heavy in compliance, and that really bogs down your in-house HR or someone who's inherited HR responsibilities. So we're really giving a return on investment in your time.
I like how you talked about the return on investment, and I think when we go back into benefits, when I started in this industry, we talked to small employers mostly. All our groups were pretty much small. And one of the things we talked about was, hey, we're going to take benefits off your plate so you can focus on growing your business. And so what you're saying, looking at this, is that kind of what a PEO does, is help somebody grow their business, support them?
It can. It's all in how they want to utilize it. So we have a lot of smaller organizations. We have larger, like you said, up to 100 employees, but they want to be scalable. So we talk about succession planning and training and development initiatives to help that organization grow.
Yeah, and I think there are some certain triggering events. If companies, when they're in growth mode, definitely look at a PEO because it allows them to focus on their business, and it allows us to handle some of the things that basically take up all of their time, right? I always call it the putting out fires.
Well, yeah, and think about right now, we're in open enrollment season. That is time consuming for any organization, but you have a benefit team that's preparing the open enrollment material, the guides, doing the presentations and the trainings. So
You're preaching to the choir on that one right now. Yeah, that's all we're doing. So let's kind of hit each little piece. And again, we're looking at PEOs as a general, not just Employers Flexible. Because Ruben, you and I have worked together for a long time. You work for other PEOs. Yep. We've brokered PEOs for clients. So I know a lot of people in my industry balk at it, and they just say, oh my God, they're stealing our benefits business. Yeah. And we've learned that no, we can not only help our clients find the right PEO, yep, but we can also guide them through that process. And when they get to a point where maybe they don't need or want a PEO anymore, we're there to help them make that transition out of it as well. But when you're talking to clients now, are you seeing an increase in PEO business?
We are seeing an increase in PEO business. In the country, there are about 487 PEOs. That number's been steadily rising because is there more compliance now or 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Right? And so who's going to stay on top of those things? The reason why we bring in somebody like a superstar like Jaffe Donaldson is because of those things. So doing business today isn't easier than it was 20 years ago. And every time we have, just another election, the president, guess what's going to happen? New compliance.
Yeah. We see that happening now. I think today they have a 2,500 page bill that no one's read. Just like, it's so funny. People are complaining about it, and it's like, well, hey, we did this in 2014 with the ACA. It's the same thing. Yeah. Granted, there'll be more compliance come out of that. But so we talk about. Let's look at a couple different ways in a PEO. So, I'm a small employer. I'm growing.
Yep.
I don't have an HR person. I'm looking and going, I need payroll. I need compliance. And there's stuff that we do as Ovation that we do a lot of compliance stuff too. Yeah. But we look at it and say, okay, you need payroll. And you sit with an employer and say, you need payroll, you need this. You can hire an HR person, which a small business, a true HR person,
right,
with credentials, they probably can't afford. And they don't need full-time either. So when you go in from a cost perspective, how do you see employers looking at that when you throw out a proposal to them? Are they saying, hey, this is ridiculous, I can't afford this? Or are you saying, no, this is reasonable, makes a lot of sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And the reason why it makes a lot of sense is I asked the employer to look at it as a hiring decision, right? So where else are you going to get an experienced HR professional? Where else are you going to get, a full payroll team? We do payroll administration, so filing all of your 940s and 941s, all of your taxes. So also from the workers' comp perspective, risk and safety, account manager, benefits, right? Or if, for instance, if you're working with a broker-friendly PEO, right? Like let's just say yourself, for instance, then we're collaborating, right? And we're talking about, conversations to make sure that this business owner is maximizing or optimizing all of our services, at pennies for the dollar.
Can I add something else we
Sure.
add? We have an employee care team, so that's available to all of the employees of your organization. So if someone has a question on benefits, PTO, a leave of absence, that can be a rotating door for your in-house HR or whoever's assumed that responsibility. So gearing them and educating them to go to a dedicated number that they have access to email or call anytime, I think that helps alleviate.
And I think Jaffe, she touches on something, so did you, Dan. Now, most small business owners who are growing, who do they appoint to do the critical HR stuff, the compliance stuff, right?
Controller or admin.
Yes.
I already know. I deal with that all the time.
Right? So it's whoever, when you walk into that business, it's whoever's sitting at that desk right there, right? I always like to joke around and say, well, what they do is they flip the badge over. They go from office manager, to, they're doing bookkeeping. Now they're the HR manager, but have no training at all.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult.
I would say those are the tough conversations. A lot of the time it is the CFO or director of finance who have assumed that. And in my experience, they're very black and white. They don't see any gray in between. And in HR and compliance, I live in a world of gray. So thinking of different solutions and options. So those can be tough conversations to get buy-in, but it takes a little bit.
Well, we know it's valuable to us because we come in, and especially in a smaller group that's even growing or just a small group, they come to say, we'll handle the benefits. We'll handle a lot of the compliance stuff related to benefits. But then they come in with HR issues. The owner will call and say, what do I do about this? I know I have a group in Fort Worth, and she calls me all the time saying, well, I have a person, they're not showing up to work at regular times. They're making all these excuses. What do I do? And I'm like, whoa, I have no idea. I'm not going to get liability-wise. I'm not even going to give you my inclination is fire them. I'm like, but I know that's not time out. That's not the right thing. And so, there I'm going to refer you, and I referred them over to a HR consultant that we use, and they're paying that person. But there's someone that I would say, and I've talked to her about, is you should look at a PEO. It's going to take the payroll off your plate. It's going to give you the HR consulting. It's going to solve these issues. And of course, we'll help you if we need it. And again, you got compliance, you got the ease of everything. It's taken off your plate. You're getting things done. And then if you need workers' comp and all that. So, and I think when somebody does a PEO, there's certain requirements. So, and what are those to be in a PEO? I know there's certain things you have to do to be part of it. What are those?
Yeah. So number one, the PEO has to take over the payroll.
Right.
That's basically the glue that holds it all together. Because if you're an employer of, let's just say, 20 employees, and you go to market for benefits or for workers' comp or what have you, you're going to get a certain price. But when we do the payroll under our FEIN, under our federal ID, now you become part of a larger pool. So now you become part of a larger organization of 11,000 employees, giving us the buying power to go get some of those things. The other thing in Texas, you got to have workers' comp. Either we can help you with it or we can actually third party it. So you can have your own. If you've got a good relationship with your brother-in-law or sister-in-law that sold you your workers' comp, you can keep your workers' comp. So those are the two requirements that you need in Texas.
Okay, so you don't have to necessarily go with your workers' comp. In fact, it probably help, if you get a better rate somewhere else. So one of the things that comes up a lot, and I hear this, and you can expand on this,
Sure.
is, oh my God, but now we're co-employers. They're taking my employees. You own my employees. And I know you guys hear that, but I hear it too when I bring that up. Well, I don't want to lose my employees. I don't want to be out of control. I don't want to lose control. So, I mean, just respond to that, because that's something we hear all the time.
Let's call this Mythbuster number 1.
Okay.
Mythbuster number 1. So, oh my God, my employer just hired a PEO. They're basically going to take full control of our operation. That's not the case. That is not the case. There's co-employment. The phrase that I like to use is you have the power of people and we have the power of paper, right? So on paper, because we're doing your payroll through our FEIN, now we're liable for some of the things like payroll taxes. We remove that from your plate.
Right.
But you still have, and Jaffe can actually speak to this better than I can, but you still have full control of your operation.
We do. I mean, if someone's going to exit someone, we prefer they contact us so we can make sure we mitigate any
Right.
risk for them, understand what they've done up to that point. I'm new to the PEO world, not into consulting, but I'll never forget my first client here in Dallas. We had been in engagement for 2 months. They didn't really utilize services or reach out a whole lot. And then an employee made a pretty serious allegation and a claim. So I reached out to the VP and the president and said, hey, I need to do an investigation. They immediately got apprehensive, they kind of took a deep breath, okay, you do your thing, but please don't change anything in our organization, basically. So I'm going through the investigation. I complete my findings. I send it to them. I said, okay, I'll meet you at the office at 9 a.m. We'll review this. Wanted to give them time. So I knew I was going to get pushback in the investigation, of my findings
Right.
and recommendations. So I sit down, meeting the owner, first time face-to-face. He's like, Jaffe, I have to tell you, I thought you were going to unionize our organization and tell me, be the HR police. And I was like, I am not here to do any such thing. I want to make sure that your employees can thrive, you have a safe environment, and I give you recommendations. At the end of the
Right.
day, it's up to you which decision you would like to take.
So it's still their company. They're still
Absolutely.
running it. You're giving them recommendations. We'll give you some policy recommendations. We'll give you the legal things that you must do, but it's up to you to implement them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And now they text me every day. So we have a great relationship.
Wait, we have an HR person. This is awesome.
We have somebody on speed dial.
So you talk about, going through all those processes. So let's talk a little bit about when somebody's with a PEO, the onboarding, offboarding process. And again, not just employer flexible, but just what you've seen, because you've worked for multiple PEOs. Yep. You came from HR, so you've done the onboarding that side. Now you're on the PEO side doing the onboarding. Talk about a little bit of process and how that eases it or makes it more complicated, or what you do.
Yeah. So if we take a look at the life cycle of an employee, right? Yes, and Jaffe will probably touch on this later. Yes, we can help you with the hiring, but everything really kind of starts when you say, "Hey, I'm thinking about hiring this person." So we can help you with background checks. We can help you with with drug, background and drug checks. So we
Can I
can
interrupt for a
go
second?
ahead.
Are you talking about onboarding a new employee or a client onboarding the first time with that?
Employees, really employees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. More
You're in the
focus
right
on the
path.
employee side. Because again, I'm trying to think from if I'm an employer
Yep.
and I'm doing everything myself right now,
Yep.
and I'm probably frustrated or tired. I mean, heck, I've got employees and I do a lot of stuff. I've offboarded a lot of stuff from my own plate because I realized as I hired more people, this is just something I don't want to do.
Yep.
Or I shouldn't be doing, or it's below my pay grade. No offense to anybody, but it is.
Yeah.
So I hire somebody to do that. So
Absolutely.
So speaking to employers, I'm going through that process. How do you make it easier on them?
And the good thing is the good thing about it is, once you've decided that you're going to hire somebody. There's no investing in your own technology. There's no investing like having to deal with software updates, because we bring everything to the table. And when we talk about, the onboarding, it's really making sure that we got everything done for them as far as, their I-9s, their W-4s, making sure the direct deposits in. And then from there, that's when we actually, start kind of the HR process.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is key, I think, for an employer and employee. They want convenience. So not only do we have the technology that we keep updated, but we have an app. And we know a lot of employees just want to be able to download an app, enter their information, make changes to their benefits, check their pay stub.
So it's all done and easy. I like that.
Easy.
So let's go kind of talk about the PEO. So let's look at the benefit side of stuff, because that's where, as a lot of my colleagues say, they're going to take the benefits and take things away from us. I've looked at it differently in the past. So I'll use an example from several years ago. Had a guy, he had a car dealership. He had, 15, 20 employees, was doing benefits. But he said, I'm going to have 100 employees by the end of the year. And he had no HR person. And I said, okay, first of all, we got to figure out how you're going to get through all of this. Okay. And so we talked to him and said, and I actually referred to him. I said, really, I think you need to look at a PEO. Because I said, and he was going to hire an HR person, but she needed to get groomed in. She didn't have a lot of credentials. Yeah. So I kind of, as a guiding thing for that person coming in, but also with that growth, I said, you should look at a PEO. And so we did the benefits and everything through there. We came in a year later, maybe it was 2 years later. They separated from the PEO. We took over the benefits. But benefits was an important piece of something he wanted to offer. And so let's talk about, on the benefits side, how does that affect the group, and how do you organize the benefits? And is every group, is it a separate group, or is it under a master contract? I mean,
so at Employer Flexible, we have a master health policy. We've got our own master plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now there are probably 3 PEOs that have master policies with Blue Cross Blue Shield in the state of Texas. Almost every PEO has master policies with either Aetna or United Healthcare.
Right.
That's pretty common. And so the way that we approach benefits is we approach it from a strategic perspective. So number one, why are you offering benefits, right? We know how competitive it is in today's world to offer that, not just from an attraction piece, but from a retention piece as well. Yeah. But our master health plan isn't for everybody. You still have to do underwriting. So if you've got 26 employees or above, we'll do what's called the group health questionnaire, which I'm preaching to the choir, and a census. And then below that, we would do the individual, personal health questionnaires, because we want to try to protect our book. So our master health policy is not always the solution. There's times where, a broker would say, hey, can you help us here in this predicament? Because our Blue Cross Blue Shield plan isn't the solution. So working with a broker-friendly PEO is definitely the way to go. If you are a health broker and you're listening, definitely find a PEO that is not territorial, is going to try to take some of your business.
Well, I know we've seen groups, they come to us and we see groups and they say, I want to get lower health insurance rates. We look at the PEO and it's not lower. It's the same, or it's higher than what they're already paying. And so I said, but they still want the PEO services. So then again, that conundrum of, I want the PEO services, but I don't want to pay more for health insurance because I'm going to pay for these extra services. So we know, and one of the things we look for in PEOs that we work with is if we can carve out the benefits. And you and I have done that with both with the PEOs you've worked for, is being able to carve out those benefits and say, okay, let's do these processes. Let's see if we can do things on the benefits outside of the PEO, but they can still get all the services you provide.
Absolutely.
And so that's usually an ASO model?
It's both ASO and PEO model. For those that don't know what the ASO model is, it's administrative services only. So we're running their payroll through their FEIN, through their federal ID, versus through ours. They still have the liability of making sure that the payroll taxes get paid on time. We're doing that for them. On the PEO model, we're doing that. We're doing that for them. But you're right. Every PEO is different. And there are some PEOs that say, well, you can't carve out the benefits, or you can carve out the benefits, but we got to have your workers' comp.
Right. I've seen that.
So one or the other. And then there's some PEOs that say, you know what, let's do what makes sense for the client, rather than just looking at, our own interest. And so, those are the conversations that we have with business owners. What makes sense for you? What makes sense long term? Again, PEOs aren't for everybody. There's not a one size fits all PEO.
Yeah.
And so do your due diligence is what I always tell everybody.
That's why I like Ruben and a lot of the sales team will invite me on their prospect meetings, especially when we're talking about benefits. That could be the most common. We want to control healthcare costs, but I really challenge them to think about total compensation. So what's the split of the employee versus employer contribution to benefits? Yep. Where are you competitively with your compensation philosophy? What does that whole package look like to make sure it's attractive and competitive for your workforce?
I like they brought up the compensation thing. I just had a lunch with a CFO, or he was ex-CFO of a major sports team here in Dallas. And it's a good friend of mine. We sat on a board together, and he brought that up. I said, looking back at when you were at time with the team, how did you approach benefits? And we were talking about it. And he said, no, we didn't look at it as healthcare. We didn't look at it as expense. We looked at it as a compensation. And so it becomes part of the total compensation package. So I like that you brought that up and approaching it that way.
Oh, yeah.
On the ASO, so going back to as a broker, as a consultant, I'm working with clients. And so I come to you and we work together collaboratively to do what's best for the client. In fact, we approach most clients with a kind of a crawl, walk, run type of thing, saying, all right, you're fully insured now. Let's look at this crawl, or you don't have any benefits. We're going to crawl, get you in slow. We're going to move you into hopefully a level funded, self-funded model and move our way up through the process. Is there an approach to that in the PEO world that you kind of say, hey, we're going to start here, here to get them? Or is the crawl kind of like we do everything for you and then we're going to back you out?
There's no marathon.
Is there
There's no marathon. But I would say that clients do have that opportunity. If they just want to start with the workers' comp and payroll side because they have really competitive benefits right now, let's get through a year, see what the next renewal looks like, and we can add on incrementally.
And the other thing too is, from an HR perspective, there are some clients that say, you know what, I really kind of just need help on the compliance piece. Yeah. And then where it really starts to, and this is kind of my favorite part, even though Jaffe does all the hard work.
I keep what do I say? I keep you
keep me
honest on these calls, yes.
But this is my favorite part is when we actually, and kind of something that sets us apart is really going into the strategic HR, right? Is going in there and saying, how can we help you?
Yeah.
How can we help you? What keeps you up at night? Is it talent acquisition? Is it the great resignation, employees getting offers that weren't looking and now they're exiting your company? Total comp package, you name it. So, some clients really buy in and value that. Others say, I'll reach out when I need you. So it just depends.
Like what keeps you up at night. We do prospects with that, and we'll say, what keeps you up at night? You're talking about benefits. What keeps you up at night? Is it, what are you going to do when an employee gets a heart attack? Or is it, no, I'm trying to get good employees. I'm trying to hire, and what do I do when I fire somebody? So I like it. I want to take a quick break here, show a video from one of our sponsors, from Craig Shelley Luxury Jewelry and Fine Watches, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back, and we're here with Jaffe and Ruben talking about PEOs and ASO models and how it works for employers and helping them grow their business, their bottom line, take care of their employees. Yes. And so let's kind of go back into it. We talked about the HR. So, this is what I want to hear. So, because I deal with it every day and I hear the stories. The value of working with a PEO. Tell me, give me a couple of examples or horror stories or where you saved an employer's ass. Show me the true value besides payroll and all the easy stuff. There's a million payroll companies. We've got partnerships with great payroll companies, but PEO is doing all the HR side of stuff. So where you really showed value?
I think it's when they have a knee-jerk reaction. They say, "Hey, we're cutting Ruben today. Go talk to him, exit him." And then I gotta.
This is your last day at work, just so you know.
I thought this would be an easy.
It's an easy on camera. You can't throw a fit.
No crying.
We'll talk later.
I think it's just the coaching aspect. I mean, I hear all the time, Texas is an at-will employer. I can let anyone go at any time. True. That doesn't really hold up in court necessarily. So let's talk about this. What have you done? I used to say hire fast, hire slow, fire fast. Now I say hire smart, because so many companies have excruciating long interview processes. And right now there's just no tolerance. So make sure you have the right people interviewing, asking the right questions for the conversation. I also believe in exiting fast. If someone's not cutting it, is it the right seat in the organization or do they need to be exited? So I save them by just coaching, having a conversation, treat people like adults. I think clients just have a fear of having courageous conversations because they don't know what they can say. So it's just easier to avoid it. Becomes a big problem, that employee, and they just want to terminate them. So
that's a huge conversation. We get a lot of calls from our small employers all the time. What would you do in this situation? Yeah. How would you handle it? I'm like, okay, there's a right way and there's Dan's way. And as my wife knows, she talked about company things, and I go, my answer is like, fire him. Just
easy.
Get rid of him. And I'm like, we can't do that.
You might, but let's just explore all options first.
But I like that. I like hire smart, really fire fast. Yeah. But I think fast and clean.
Exactly. I can't say I'm not suggesting you need to retain every employee. I mean, some things are very toxic. And if it's distracting, let's talk about strategies to exit it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you look at in every PEO, I mean, especially if you've been doing it for quite some time, you're going to get the same spiel, right? Like, oh, yeah, we help out with payroll taxes. We can help out with benefits, help out with workers' comp, risk and safety. But this really is kind of, what really differentiates PEOs is having the level of service. For us, it's high touch.
Yep.
Yeah.
High touch, it's putting humans back in human resources.
And I think that's a very dated terminology, human resources. I like to say people-centric, people initiatives, but at the end of the day,
but there are some good PEOs out there that rely heavily on just technology. And that's okay, because there are some clients, there are some business owners that say, you know what, I don't want to talk to anybody. Yeah.
I mean, hands off. They actually, we've dealt with employers before that don't care about their employees. Mm-hmm. They're flat out, we don't care. They're here to do a job, and if they don't want to be here, they don't want to be here, and we'll let them go. And
find someone else. We just need a warm body.
And those aren't clients we work with because that's just not our style. Those aren't clients we'll do business with. But so let's look at from the PEO side. We run into all the time, and I don't care, I'll throw names out there. We run into ADP, OneSource all the time. We did a lot of work a decade ago with TriNet. I run into an Insperity rep every freaking day. No offense to Insperity, sorry. I've got 20 that I have cards on that are always calling on me. Yeah. So, and again, I don't want this to be an advertisement for Employers Flexible. Yeah. It's more about PEO in general, because if those companies are great and they do great things as well. Yeah. And I do know there is a fit. So there's another group that we work with, LL Roberts. Yep. Great people. We know them real well. Yep. They have their niche in the PEOs they work. Yeah. So, your blue collar trucking company, they have phenomenal PEOs for that industry. Absolutely. But looking at just going back to Employers Flexible, what is your niche? What size employers? Is there a certain industry? Is there an area that you really exceed everyone else in?
I think you hit it. I mean, you really kind of said it best when you said working with employers that really care about their employees. For somebody that really doesn't care about kind of the benefit offering, doesn't really care about the retention of their employees, any of that, we're probably not. There's probably a good PEO out there for you. We're probably not it though. Right. For us, it's really looking at a PEO as a strategic partner. For us, our average client has 33 employees. So yes, we can do smaller. We have clients that have 5 employees, and then we do have a client that has 1,700 employees, right? So it's going to differ in the number of employees that each employer has. But for us, we're probably not going to be great at the high risk blue collar, but a little bit of gray and white collar, absolutely.
That makes sense. I mean, I know, and again, going back to my TriNet days, they were white collar. They were, if you brought a blue collar group, they just were not that fit. It's not the business they wanted. And again, they got a workers' comp pool. They don't want to dirty their workers' comp pool. I mean, we do it in the benefits all the time with our captives. We don't want to dirty our pool. We don't just let anybody in. We run it a certain way. So talk to me a little bit about, I guess, when somebody's looking at a PEO, they're thinking about it, or maybe it just crossed their mind. What are, 2-3 questions they should ask themselves to really make that decision?
So one would probably be,
am I sick of doing HR?
it is really kind of asking themselves, what they're working towards. What's the ultimate goal? Is it to basically kind of remain stagnant, stay the same, status quo?
Just check the box that I'm compliant.
Yeah, kind of like, okay, I've got my office manager who's doing everything, checking the box. Or is it to grow? Is it to grow into other states? One of the really good reasons why PEO works is because we do business in all 50 states. So for you to learn the laws in Pennsylvania,
that's a really good point.
It's a really good state.
Right? To learn the laws in New York, to learn the laws in the one that everybody hates. California.
California, New York, they're the ones.
I mean, you already have enough on your plate, right? So, your expansion mode, you're looking to offer your employees a little bit more and really kind of become a difference. I mean, that's one of the great reasons.
I think another reason is coming out of a COVID year, they want to be more efficient. So we have technology where they can have everything in the cloud. Their employees can access it. We can document. So they have better contingency plans and they want to work smarter, not harder. And so I think we can offer them that.
I have a pretty good example. So Jeffy and I went to Fort Worth to go visit a prospect. They had 85 employees, internal HR. Right. And so this is kind of also leads to Mythbuster number 2. If I already got an internal HR person, a professional, are they a threat? Well, we're not. And one of the things that we were able to do and identify is that this internal HR person that they valued a lot actually ended up leaving.
She was bogged down. I mean, it's the transactional stuff. I mean, the onboarding, the payroll, the employee relations, like she didn't get the opportunity to get initiatives off her plate where she was really passionate about because she had a rotating door. So that one was easy buy-in to eliminate the threat factor, I think, and say, you hear me, you know exactly what I'm talking about and what that looks like.
Yeah, and it's also having just very frank conversations, kind of saying, I've kept up with your company for the last 6 years, and basically HR has been a rotating, door.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's because the same things keep coming up. There's no structure there. It's basically hire one HR person and then they leave because it's so hard to keep up with just the hiring alone.
The hiring, the compliance. I mean, in COVID, so many things changed from a compliance level, and a lot of companies had layoffs and reduction in force, and there's a lot of compliance that goes with that. So it's
interesting you said about the HR people leaving. For a long time, I think, because we are dealing with HR a lot of time, or most times, we saw a lot of people stay in HR. They were there for 5, 10, 15 years, forever. Yeah. We are seeing a lot of rotating door on the HR now, where they're coming in for a year or 2 years, they're gone, or 6 months. I mean, a lot of these people are coming in and out, and it puts a headache on us because we're having to retrain, we're having to rework, create relationships with these new HR people. Yep. We see a lot of that. But a lot of, again, maybe COVID has something to do with that. People are bouncing around. It's getting more difficult because you have workforces that are all over the country. They're just virtual.
More opportunity,
yeah. And are you seeing, so going into that, prior to COVID, have you seen in your business a huge paradigm shift, a change in how things are because of COVID and now a more virtual workforce?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of clients saying, we're returning to office, we're going fully remote, we're somewhere in the middle. So many conversations of, how will my employees adapt to this? Well, have you talked to them? Have you surveyed them? What's the best for your operations?
And I would say, I would challenge that business owner and say, how are you getting better if you're still doing the same thing that you were doing prior to COVID? right? Because if their business practices are the same, but everybody else and the environment around you has changed, but yet you haven't.
Yep.
I mean, there's a reason why there's a rotating door there. And so that's why, we were able to have, some of those conversations saying, what we're going to do is we're going to help free some of that time so you can work on those strategic initiatives. So, yeah, absolutely.
It's a hard conversation.
I like it. So we've covered, we got HR covered with the PEO. You got HR covered. You've got payroll covered.
Yep.
Compliance. Benefits can go either way.
Yep.
I can go to a broker. We can work together.
Yep.
It can go through you.
Yep.
You've got your workers' comp, same thing.
Yep.
Ruben, you and I talked earlier and talked about Mythbusters. And so we covered 2 myths. One was, that you still own your employees.
Yeah.
And then we just did myth 2, which was, remind me, myth 2.
Internal HR.
Internal HR. And I think you got a couple more. So let's get those, because we got to push those out.
I think another one is really coming in and thinking that the employees aren't going to take to that they're basically going to reject a PEO.
Right.
You come in, you say, oh, well, everything's going to change. That's not the case. It's definitely not the case.
They don't have a new boss.
Yeah. The Mythbuster number 1 was that basically, we were going to take over and do everything, and that you have to follow the law, and then this, and that, right? Jaffe's going to come in.
I'm tough.
Yeah. I don't work for Dan anymore. I work for Jaffe.
And number 3 is really kind of all about the employees.
The employee experience, you know, so I think it depends on the communication you share with the employees about it. Some find it exciting to have the PEO because they know they have direct access to talk about their payroll questions, their taxes, their benefits, even their benefit claims. Like, they have a direct source and a direct line that is easily accessible.
Yeah, you talked about the employee care team right there, and how they don't have to sit there and wait for an answer when they can just go get it right then and there. Yeah.
So in comparison, and again, I'll let you guys advertise for a second here, because I'm just curious. You've worked with other PEOs. You came from HR side, and you're competing against other PEOs a lot. What makes Employer Flexible different from an ADP OneSource or a TriNet, or Insperity? What differences and what similarities do you have?
Can I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm impressed with the care team at Employer Flexible, so that's why I want to bring that up too.
Well, I think working in HR consulting prior to joining a PEO, I honestly thought I'd never join a PEO. So many of my clients in a previous life had PEOs, and so when I'm working alongside them, trying to get answers, resolution, strategize, just bounced around. It was a rotating door at that organization. They didn't have a direct line of contact. I was frustrated. I was like, I will never work for a PEO. But I was really impressed with Employer Flexible. Honestly, first, the culture and the people are amazing. Yeah. I think for me, that's one of the highlights if I'm choosing to spend my time at an organization. Yeah. And not to sound cheesy, but it is flexible for the client to pick and choose a bit of which benefits work best for them, or workers' comp, build upon what the services we offer. And lastly, I would say just the service, like the ability to strategize with someone about strategic efforts or your employees instead of just an 800 number or a website.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about some of the PEOs, and you kind of threw out some big names. One of the things that makes Employer Flexible different, and one of the reasons why I chose to stay here, why I chose to work for Employer Flexible, is because it's a very flat organization. Mm-hmm. So when decisions need to be made, I can go directly to the owner, or I can go directly to the VP of sales. I'm thankful that I have a great manager with tons of experience. But it's not just about the basics, like, again, the payroll administration, the benefits, the workers' comp. It's, to me, we invest so much in our HR that we can have some of these strategic conversations with business owners. And that's what I love about it.
I think they invest in the people, regardless which department at our organization, which only strengthens the benefit for clients, across the board.
And communication is key, right? Every month we have basically an all call talking about kind of the state of,
the town hall, the organization, where we are, where we're going.
Yep, and it's very transparent.
You get that from those, when you're in a smaller boutique organization, you can do that. And I love that, because we see it all the time. Yeah. and I love the partnership and the collaboration that you talk about with your clients, with broker partners like us or consultant partners like us. I mean, it's great. You and I sit and talk regularly about, we have these prospects that are looking at this. Is this a good fit? Where can we fit you in? Where can we fit in with yours? And that's that's an overall solution we try to bring our clients as well, as saying, we've had this discussion. So when I sit with a client, I don't just talk about, let's talk about your benefits. What deductible do you have? What copay? We're talking about the overall picture of their organization, and let's find all the holes in it. Compliance is a huge one. I go through like a 20-point checklist on compliance. I'll tell you right now, 95% of the employers I talk to have at least 5 of those missing, and a lot of them are 50% or more. So bringing in those, showing that, here's how we can consult, bring this in. And it might not be stuff that we do. We want to show them where they need to step it up, where they need to fill these holes, and bringing in someone like Employers Flexible or a PEO can really do that. I mean, this has been great, and I think from a broker perspective or a consultant perspective, you need to have somebody in your back pocket like this that can support your clients, grow with your clients, can be flexible. And again, not trying to use your name, but it's true. Have that flexibility, but also the broker has to be flexible too. I mean, because I walk into clients and I can say, hey, great, you want payroll? Here's Paylocity. Here's this one. We do that. But when they have bigger needs, especially when they don't have an HR person, they don't have somebody managing, they don't have somebody onboarding, offboarding. I mean, you don't have an ERISA attorney on staff. I mean, those are the things that you really need a partner for that can handle those things. So with that, I mean, any last closing? I mean,
I would say that not just for Employer Flexible, but for any PEO, whenever you have a broker that looks outside of just their own solution, the ultimate goal is to help the client, right? Some of the things that you were saying right now, I was tuning in because everything was very client centric, and to me, that's the way a good broker, a good PEO should be, because it's not about you. It's not about making a quick buck. It's not about any of that. It's about bringing a solution, because that's why we're here. We're here to bring solutions. So I mean, I love that you said that. You're big, you have a big influence in the broker community. I love that you expand to other options and just say, hey, look, I sometimes I know that I can't, be the one all be all solution.
Well, I think that's part of is recognize that maybe I'm not the one all, I don't have all the solutions. And sometimes you have to know when to step back and go, look, you know what? Benefits, everything should roll this way. And when the time is right, come back to us. And we'll work, and also like being partnered, because I know we're in communication. So, hey, how's so-and-so going? How's that group going? Great. Hey, they're getting in a position where I think they're going to transition out of the PEO. Great. We want to make sure we're there to pick it up from that point forward. So I think it's just a great partnership with Employers Flexible. Number one, it's been a pleasure working with both of you and your team. But for anyone out there, I think for employers, look at a PEO if you have too much on your plate, if you're trying to grow your business, if you're trying to scale, if you're trying to increase your revenue, focus on revenue, not HR in doing these things. But for brokers, don't rule out the PEO model. I think it can really help you grow your business. It can help you bring value to your clients even more. But you do need good partners. And I know like Employers Flexible has just been a great one for us. So really appreciate you guys coming in and going through all of this.
Well, thanks for having us, Dan.
Yeah. So with that said, thanks for tuning in to another episode with Employers Flexible today. I want to put a big thanks out to our sponsors. Again, Craig Shelley, Fine Jewelry Luxury Watches. Bill Wallace at Success North Dallas, who's been connecting people for 30 years. And of course, Work Innovators, that is amplifying the voice of business. We appreciate everyone coming out here, and have a great time. We'll see you later.